Hey, I'm Dave Watkins, Watkins Films. Now today we're going to talk about a new 4K UHD release from Severin Films. Now I haven't bought a lot of Severin Films releases before. Recently I did get they had a sale and I got this Christopher Lee Euro Crypt box set. I got volumes 1 and 2. Now these have some very obscure Christopher Lee films in both of them. I haven't checked them out yet, but it should be an interesting watch. Now during that same sale, it wasn't on sale, but this is their new release that they put out, was Dario Argento's Opera. Now Dario Argento was a famous, or he's still alive, but he's a famous Italian horror director and writer. He was also famous for Italian giallos. Now a giallo is kind of like deep red. Opera actually is a giallo in itself, but a giallo is a murder mystery psychological horror, and it can include supernatural elements. But his other films, which kind of lean that way, like the Bird with the Crystal Plumage, he also has directed some straight up like supernatural horror films like Phenomena. Phenomena stars Jennifer Connelly and Donald Pleasance, and it was around the same time that Opera was released, around the same kind of time period. Opera was a 1987 horror film. Now, of Dario Argento's films, the one that I like the most and the one that I saw first was Suspiria. I really like Suspiria, but this is the one we're talking about today, Dario Argento's Opera, and also known as Terror at the Opera in the United States. I believe that because if you look at, when you pop this disc in, it gives you two options. You can either watch the Dario Argento director's cut, which is just called Opera, but the other one's the US version, and when you put it on and opening credits, it says Terror at the Opera. The US version is about 10 minutes shorter. Now, looking at the two, I had a hard time figuring out what exactly was added to the director's cut. I did notice two scenes specifically. The very last scene went longer in the director's cut, and then there's another very specific scene that happens later in the film. So that probably adds a good 4 or 5 minutes. But there's also some of the other scenes may have been longer or something to that nature. Now, this was a first-time watch for me, and I got to tell you, I really loved it. I was very impressed with the film. Having been familiar with his other films, to me, this one played a lot better than the other ones. Just right off the bat, just watching it, and I was very engaged. Now, a lot of it, especially in the first part and later in the film, takes place at an opera house, and it looks huge. And Dario Argento had experience actually directing operas, and so here you could tell he had a lot of knowledge of it, and you could just feel like the way that the camera moves within following these people working behind the scenes. Now, this reminds me of another film that's fairly obscure that no one's probably ever heard of, called Phantom of the Opera. No, just kidding, but everyone knows Phantom of the Opera. But it is similar to Phantom of the Opera in a way. It borrows a lot from it, but it tells a different story, and it is a more refreshing story to me. But Dario Argento's Opera, it is a giallo, but it also has some slasher sensibilities. Here we are in 1987 at the height of the slasher film craze, so he had to throw that in here. And it does have some graphic violence that you would be familiar with Dario Argento's stuff, but it does go through for long spells of the film without the graphic violence, but then it hits you and it's like, wow, that's something there. A little bit about the plot. So at the beginning of the film, there is a over-the-top opera singer. They are putting on a production of Macbeth, which is historically supposed to be bad luck to put on Macbeth, or you're not even supposed to say Macbeth in a lot of theaters because they consider it to be bad luck. The actress playing the opera singer playing Lady Macbeth in the film, you don't really see her on screen. It's camera point of view. It's a very odd way to start it off. It's like her point of view walking through the opera house, and the only time you see her is in a wide shot. She walks outside and gets hit by a car, and she gets injured, so she's not able to do the opera going forward. So then they have to call in this understudy The character's name was Betty, played by a Spanish actress, but they have to call her in, and she's at first she's like a little worried about doing the play because it is Macbeth and it's bad luck to do it, but she knows it by heart. She goes in and she does it and she kills it. But while she's doing it, there is a stalker watching her from the audience, and it's kind of like this Phantom of the Opera type of stalker. And then someone comes in and sees him. He's not supposed to be there, and he turns around and he kills the guy. And this light falls and lands on the ground near some people watching the opera, and they're like, "What happened?" So that's so then following that, the opera goes pretty good. Now something about this. Now there are some kind of 87 sensibilities you see, because you do see some, like, and when you see her apartment, the main character's apartment, you see she's got a bunch of VHS tapes in there, and a lot of times you're watching these especially like movies like The Bird with the Crystal Plumage and things that take place in the 70s. You're not seeing a lot of that type of technology around, so it was kind of interesting to see that. You see some very big cameras that they're shooting the opera with and things of that nature. So following that, this stalker begins to stalk her, and then what he'll do is, and this is a pretty famous, if you see on the back here, you not be able to see it. This is an eye with a razor blade, really pins. The killer has these razor blade pins, and he comes in and he kidnaps her kind of and ties her up and puts these pins under her eyes so she can't stop watching, and then he kills somebody in front of her. Now the film often just kind of displays almost like a dreamlike logic in some instances, but there are situations where she'll see somebody get killed and she feels like if she tells the police about it, they won't believe her or something. So she doesn't go directly to the police. She tries to run and get away from it instead of trying to confront it. And she almost tries to act like things like that didn't happen. So, but she's kind of put through a lot of trauma during the process of the film. Now let's take a look at what Severin has offered up here. Now this is a pretty impressive box here. And then here's the inside cover. And there's also a booklet. Here she is when she's tied up with the needles under her eyes. And here's a wide shot of the opera. I'm going to open this. So there's a lot of discs here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is a 5-disc set. So here's the 4K version of the film, the US and the theatrical one. Here's a director's cut. Now these are presented in different frame ratios. One of them's 235:1 and then 185:1 for the director's cut and the Blu-rays. And then there's additional extras, and then there's a motion picture soundtrack, and there she is, like, busting out that opera. Even before it really got into the very violent parts of it, I thought it was very fantastically shot. He has a lot of very creative shots. The very first shot of the film, it starts off in the opera house, and they have like these ravens in there, and it has a close-up of the raven in the back of the opera house is kind of out of focus as the credits are coming on, and that was just right away. I was like, wow, that is friggin' awesome looking. Now this is a new 4K restoration of the film. They put a lot of effort into this, and it looks terrific. I didn't notice a lot of heavy grain. Everything looked very smooth. It wasn't like the type of film when you're watching it where things just kind of like were very sharp looking. I think it was intentionally supposed to not look very sharp. Now, not that it looks out of focus, but it looks very cinematic. I think in general the film looks very cinematic, very artistic. All right, so let's go ahead and rate all of this. Severin did a fantastic job with this release. This is like a limited edition release. They'll later will release just this without all the box and all that. It'll be less money. You'll be able to purchase it from Amazon more than likely. Right now you can go directly to their site, the Severin site, and you can purchase the box and all that. Now I'm going to give it 5 stars for the packaging. I thought that was fantastic work in the booklet. The film itself, I'm also going to give 5 stars. I was very taken by the film. I think it was very well done. Anyway, if you've seen it before, let me know your thoughts on it. I'm Dave Watkins, and if you haven't done so already, if you subscribe to my channel and like this video, thanks for watching.